Hi, so I'm having morning thoughts about the quantum field of interconnectedness and what it means to be connected to that and like sensing into that and using that as a space of intel. And so thinking about words and communication, I'm thinking about how if I'm having a conversation with somebody, sometimes it doesn't exactly matter what it is that they are able to put into words and how they say things, because I'm such an intuitive person and I know that a lot of people relate to this. But if you're tapped into the subtle energies of the spaces, between us and how it feels to be alone versus to be around people, and sort of just like I think a lot of people who are psychically gifted or like light worker starseed, again with like trauma histories, you become sort of hyper vigilant to things. And I think in a certain stage of life, it's a detriment to your functionality, but as you heal and learn to master it, it becomes part of your strength, because it's how you had to walk and live in order to tend to your own garden, which might be a little bit different from, there's so many different words, right? From people who are like neurodivergent or not plagued with a complex set of like hurdles in life, right? Because everybody's path is very different. But anyway, so I was thinking about the paradox of being very, very sensitive and having moments where I take things personally, but also almost never do, because there's always a way to feel into the root of interactions, regardless of the words that are actually said, and body movements and how people's energy fields and bodily fields and the way those two things are connected, and how energy shifts translate through somebody's body, and then consequently like what they end up saying, and psychology, just the whole wheel of human interaction and how we can interpret one another. There's like a very primal tribal thing there around, like, for instance, I think about the relationship I have with my dog, and I joke about this, but he is increasingly like, our telepathic abilities are pretty cool. I have a story about a dog psychic and my grandmother that I'll share in an upcoming video at some point, but there's a lot of stuff with studies that have been done around how humans and dogs register each other. And dogs, I guess the research shows that the way they register the human body is that they track our shape. Like, we are also dogs, but we're just like funny larger dogs that choose to walk bipedal instead of quadrupedal. Like, they understand a hand to be a similar relationship to a paw, and I think they understand our eyes to be in similar relationship with like the dog's face, because dogs have certain markers, like to bare teeth is a sign of aggression, right? So a human smiling, a dog sees that, but then there's the energy that the dog is also privy to. Like, animals are obviously, without words, deeply in an energetic world, energetic language. And my dog hasn't been eating his kibble, and I told him I would take him to the store so he could walk through the aisles himself and do a sniff test and indicate to me which kibble he wanted me to buy, because we've been going through this, and I don't like wasting money, as nobody does, but dog food is like somewhat pricey for what it is, and I've resisted getting any type of fancy thing, because like a meal kit for my dog or any of those things, I get marketing all the time for it, and my dog will like stare at me when the ad's playing, and I'm like, no. I can't sit right with the idea that you have access to a finer quality of nutrition than most of the humans in the world. Like, that's not a good way to allocate my finances, in my opinion. The dog has survived healthfully on dry kibble for long enough. But anyway, he's boycotting all of these different kinds. And I asked him last night, dog sitting on the floor staring at me with his ears all folded back, like plastered to his head, when he's like in this little state, he's like unhappy. And I'm like, what is it? Do you not like the way that it tastes? And he looks at me and he gives 2 taps of his little tail. He goes like, shake, shake, which is like an affirmative. And he kind of like bats his ears up and down. And I was like, okay, so you don't like the way it tastes. And he starts wagging his tail, and he like sits up, and he's like, so what are we going to do about it, type of energy. And I get telepathic downloads and transmissions from the dog all the time, because he's so repetitive in his motions that I've come to understand what he means when he does little gestures. And I think anybody can say that about their dog to some capacity. But I was like, okay, so for tonight's purposes, like, I'm just going to put, I put a little bit of like salad dressing on it, tiny little bit. I know that's not good for a dog, but I just mixed it up, just gave it like a little bit of flavor, and he ate it, and we like had a conversation about that. But animals are used to not having words. They're used to not having the ability to communicate with language, and us humans forgot that that's primary language. Like energy think about the language that nothing requires words for, about the relationships in nature with like patterns and cycles and ecosystems and how different species rely on each other. For instance, if something didn't migrate, or if a school of fish didn't go to a certain place to spawn at a certain point in the seasons in a certain part of the world, then a certain relationship within a certain symbiotic relationship that is supporting other systems of life, that wouldn't be able to take place. And it's like these unspoken agreements. And the way that life is right now with society and how fast everything moves, I think a lot of people have lost sight of the fact that there are some like underlying human things that are true. And that's what I believe we have access to when we consider our own energy and develop an intimate relationship with it and learn new ways of talking about it, because then your world starts to show to you how reliable that is. And I think my healing journey has just led me to a place of like, it's incontestably the way that I operate, because it's consciousness based, and it changes the way that you make assumptions or not, and make decisions. So just some light thoughts I was having upon waking, in addition to some other stuff. I know the next card reading I'm gonna do is gonna have a lot of really useful information, so stay tuned for that. And then I also recorded a pick a card reading this morning, and it was one of the 60-second shorts that I do, but I decided to speak during the video instead of voicing it over later, because I didn't want it to be a blind reading, because I wanted to be able to provide insight for piles 1, 2, and 3. And the theme is, what's your blind spot right now, or the thing that is your biggest sticking point around what you're not, able to see as part of the situation. So there's 3 different answers for that prompt, because that's what I was guided. That's what I was guided to clarify, or as in like what we need to know today on this fine day. It's March 15th, 2024, 11:30 a.m. And I ran out of time because I'm not used to giving explanations in such a short window, but I'm going to add text to it. So hopefully it's a useful short, but go watch that if you're feeling like you have some kind of blind spot or sticking point. Anybody who thinks they don't have one is in denial, because we are not, excuse me, I'm seeing like one of those seraphim, like an angel, biblically accurate angel with all the eyes on it, like whirring around. We're not omnipresent. We can't see everything at the same time. And because of that, our human experience is and always will be limited. And we have to learn to be able to sit with the idea that sometimes we're facing this way and we're looking at this, and sometimes we're facing that way. And when you're in one or the other, you can't see the other respectively. So that's part of, I think, blind faith, like becoming comfortable with the true limitations of what it means to be human, and liking that, and then understanding what transcends the human experience, that is also part of reality, that is there to support us in our navigation. All right, I hope everybody's well.